Ready? Yeah. Dr. Pam!
Hello, Lady Eleanor.
Thank you for calling me Lady Eleanor. I feel regal and important now. Dr. Pam Spurr, renowned... How do we explain what you do?
Well, I usually go by self-help expert,
Yes.
but I am trained as a psychologist and I work as a life coach a lot.
And a love coach, right?
Love, sex, everything.
Awesome. Great, because I need some help, Dr. Pam. You saw my
It's
show.
here.
Yeah, you saw my show in Edinburgh. I'm a hot mess.
I absolutely love it, and yes, you're a hot mess.
I love it. That should be the title of my next show. So you've been a sort of life dating sex coach for like quite a number of years.
Oh yeah, a couple decades.
So since the apps situation, Tinder, Bumble happened, all of that stuff, what have people been coming to you problem-wise that you think is as a result of the apps?
It has exacerbated all the normal human worries we have. You know, am I good enough?
Yeah.
And then you go, and who do I want? And then there's 1,000 billion profiles you can flick through.
Yeah.
So those things about, what I'm looking for, that becomes more confusing.
Yeah.
Because with the choice is great, but when there's literally an endless choice on all the apps, then people then get bogged down. I have a lot of people who say that they end up with that grass is greener syndrome, where they think, oh, maybe if I just go on another app, I'll find a better person.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a never-ending quest.
Okay, so I have been single, as you know, you saw my show. I've been single for probably about 12 or 13 years. I mean, as I say, I've been busy. Don't worry about it. But in terms of finding, I've got to be real with you. I'm a recovering addict. That does extend into sex and love addiction. Yeah. And now I'm trying to do more of a sober lifestyle, and that's only in the last 18 months, even though I've been sober for 5 years, because you get a sex addiction in early recovery. That's pretty much standard, because you want to find something else to hold on to. Exactly. So what do I need to do? What should my approach be now that I'm trying to be a bit more emotionally sober?
Your approach should be like the 12 steps of dating.
Okay.
You should take it day by day.
Yeah.
You should take responsibility for your actions when it comes to maybe overusing apps or something. You have to take a sense of, manage your expectations and remember that there are some things you might want to change but can't. So you might see someone's profile, start messaging them, they message you back, and you develop expectations that they're a certain way. But of course, in real life, very often what people say to me is, I've met so many people and they are never how their banter was on the apps.
Okay, I've got a theory about this. Okay. I think it's because you read back their message in your internal voice.
Yes.
And so you can add any character elements to them because it's not a two-way thing.
Absolutely. And when it says in messaging, yes, you absolutely can put your own tone in, your own meaning. And then, of course, I always say to people, well, yeah, they have great bounce, but how do you know when you met them and you say, actually, they're a bit boring? Well, on the messaging, they can take a gap and they can be thinking about what their banter will be. Yeah. So it's not necessarily that they're natural, really funny and whatever, because they have the opportunity to say, oh, I was busy, sorry, I didn't get back to you till now with a message. And they've been thinking, oh, what can I say that's really cool, witty, whatever.
They've probably got lines as well. They've probably got, but
exactly.
but they've probably
got lines.
Yeah, they probably have. Not in a malicious way, but you've got certain like one-liners, that you might say when you haven't met anyone. So in terms of so I've done all the permutations of how to do it. I've had sex on the first date, the third date, the fifth date. I've had sex on all the permutations. What's the proper way? What should I be doing?
It has to be your own. There's no combination. I hate this whole thing that people say, oh, you should have sex by the third date. I literally hate that because it should be about you and that person.
Right.
There is no magic formula about when you should get to the next stage. And if you're just looking for fun sex and you're good enough about communicating your needs in the bedroom and that's all you want some flings, that's cool.
Yeah.
No judgment. You'll never get judgment from me. But if you're actually looking for more, then you have to take that formula out. And actually, two things, the C words, confidence and communication, not the other one, not the other C word. If you feel confident and you feel you can communicate yourself well, that means you'll be in control of the situation. And that means when you are ready, when Lady Eleanor is ready for sex, you will start ratcheting up the sexual chemistry, the flirting, and all that stuff.
Right.
It should never be a formula. Forget the third date formula.
Okay, so what I've been guilty on in the past is sort of going straight to the sexy time and then trying to maneuver what I really want from that point.
Yeah, and sometimes it's more than sex, and sometimes it's like probably you don't want to see the person again, or...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to negotiate out of the grey area if I've already had sex. I think I mean...
Sorry, I'm taking hair out of my
No,
mouth.
no, that's all right. Would you agree that you need to be upfront about what you want first?
I think that kind of takes some of the mystery out. And I know people nowadays, the whole consensual thing is important.
Yeah.
So if you two are getting flirty and things are warming up between you, then that whole consensual thing is really important nowadays. However, I don't think right at the start, when you're first meeting someone, you lay your cards out on the table, well, I want a relationship. Instead, you just take control. If it seems like they want to push sex onto the agenda too soon for you, then you just take control and just say, hey, I'm not ready for sex yet, but I love the chats we have. I love you. I'm a love addict. So you have to just, as I say, you don't want to lay all your cards on the table, because I do believe that it's nice to retain a little bit of mystery about who you are. I don't believe that we should just reveal ourselves to the world the first time we meet someone, because that can really freak some people out, that kind of huge honesty. Instead, I think just take it a step at a time, like people do with recovery.
Firstly, so I am early 40s and I don't know who to swipe right on. Right, do I swipe right on the age-appropriate guys, or do I continue swiping right on the younger guys?
And have you enjoyed your times with the younger guys?
Yes, I've not really enjoyed my times with the older guys.
Okay. Are you talking purely sexual enjoyment, or
I'm gonna get slated in the comments for this, but the guys around the age-appropriate guys that I should be going out with, either they're eternally single and they're sort of they're a bit alpha, and I'm too alpha for an alpha guy.
Yeah,
because
you need an alpha beta mix.
What's that? How do I know what that is?
That's where you get a strong guy who can cope with you as a strong woman.
Yeah.
But also has that softer side.
Yes.
To sort of just take off the edges. Because two alphas sometimes can just repeatedly knock heads. It becomes a game of control and power rather than, gosh, let's have a really good time together.
Well, that's it. I went on a date with a guy in his 40s a couple of weeks ago. I thought, you know what, I'll be normal. And I was wearing like a kind of jumpsuit thing, and it was done up. The zip was done up, and he kept just undoing it like an inch. And
really?
And just
on your first date?
On the first
he was actually touching you?
Yeah, and he was like, and he was going, that's a bit more feminine. And I was like, and I didn't even notice those little chips. I was like, ugh.
No, that's that kind of negative stuff that people, some of these guys who go out there and say they're date coaches, and they say, oh yeah, you need to do the backhanded compliment. Or the negging, exactly. So when you say, who should I be swiping on? Well, you have to think effectively when you're using an app, else you spend all day on it.
Yeah.
So to be effective on an app, you have to think, what do I want? So what do you want now? Do you want more than hot sex with a young guy?
Yeah.
What do you want? Maybe that's what you want.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think I don't know what I want. I'm not really sure. So when I do the age ranges to age appropriate, I kind of go, there's rarely any men that I'm like, oh, you're fit. So then I go a bit younger, and that sort of mid-range, sort of 30 to 40, I'm just like, oh, they want babies, and I panic because I don't want babies. Yeah. And so that sort of safe space is like 25 to 30.
But it sounds like you're making really big assumptions about people. Like, they're going to want babies, or the guys my age are going to be just alphas or dull or something.
Yeah, or have baggage.
Yeah. But do you have baggage? See, I believe we all have baggage.
Yeah, we all have baggage.
And it's whether or not we know our baggage. Yeah, but still, there's nothing, ex-wives can not necessarily be a problem. I mean, there are plenty of people who meet people who are divorced. I was once divorced and I met someone else, and, I think to go with those assumptions that those are bad things, maybe they've learned a lot from a divorce. So that could be a positive. Do you see, this is what I find with people. The people I date coach, I say they've got a little circle of opportunity. They say, this is my comfort zone, like for maybe for you hot younger guys. And I say, well, you're still in the same place. And you're still in the same place 12 months later or whatever.
Yeah.
Widen your circle of opportunity. Bring in people don't let your expectations cloud your judgment. Because if you expect someone who's your age not to be right for you, you are wiping out how many million men? I mean,
Yeah.
So it's like widen your circle of opportunity. Be open-minded to things. If you go to the same, it's like I date coach people who say, oh, well, I always go to the same place, and you're like, God, I never meet anybody new. Well, same places, same faces.
Got it.
You're going to see the same people. So you have to widen that circle of opportunity in so many ways. Expectations to actually geography, where you go to meet people, and which apps you use.
So, like, I've downloaded Bumble recently because I just thought, oh, maybe something's changed.
Interesting Bumble. Tell me your Bumble story, because, yeah.
Well, that's where I met the Zip, that looks better, more feminine guy. And then I met, and then so basically what I do is I just quickly match. And then sometimes I'll go through and then unmatch a few. And I had 2 guys that I unmatched follow me to my Instagram and Facebook account and be like, why did you unmatch me? And I'm like, because I got bad vibes of you. I didn't say that. And then I had one guy follow me to multiple social media accounts. And apparently we'd spoken like 7 or 8 years previously on Plenty of Fish. I don't remember. Like,
That's a long time ago.
That was a
dating app.
Yeah,
history. That's ancient history.
For someone that was racking up 7 or 8 dates a week, for sure. That was. I told
You're
you.
as bad as Prince Andrew. Can't remember all the young blondes
I
he
know.
had. Come on.
I mean, I didn't
do better than Prince Andrew.
Thank you. I'm trying. So, and then he messaged me on WhatsApp, like, who has phone number? I don't know who has phone numbers from that long ago. And then when I blocked him, he messaged me from another number on WhatsApp.
Well,
how do I deal with that?
So obviously he wanted some sort of closure, some sort of reason.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's up to you to then give that closure or decide you don't want to do that closure. I always feel we mature as people if we can give closure. And one issue I find is so many women are the ones seeking closure. It's rarer in your case, you have men seeking closure. This is gender stereotyping. On the whole, we women seem to be bogged down by wanting closure more. We want to know the reason, and often it's about self-blame. We're like, it must have been something I did. What did I do? I don't want to do it next time around with someone else. I need closure. But guys too, yeah, they might be better on the whole, and this is brain research shows men are better at compartmentalizing things and having more focus on one goal at a time, so they're not necessarily if they've moved on from someone, they don't really need the closure, but a lot of men do. So we can't keep to those gender stereotypes. So if you can think of a tactful and honest way of saying to someone, this is why I don't want to meet up. That's best for them, that's best for you. I think the sort of line was that I shouldn't engage with it because he just wants engagement. And I guess there's a sort of feeling hounded, like a kind That's
of like...
That's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling. And maybe I should have texted back with some clarity, but I just didn't want to engage because I felt there was an element of me that felt scared and just felt like, there's someone walking behind me down a dark alley vibe.
Well, in that case, then I think it's always important to assert your boundaries and say, actually, I feel quite hounded by this. And you may not intend it that way, but I take it that way.
Okay.
So let's stop messaging. So again, it's about you then learning to set a boundary on someone who's made you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And maybe he was making genuinely, that's how you feel. And maybe in some ways that's his intention, to kind of bug you a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't. Whatever. It's your right to say, I felt hounded, or I feel you're over the top. And I need to draw a line under this. Sorry, I'm just kicking your notes around.
No, that's all right. I think that's a very sort of, that's a thing omnipresent in women. I think we're learning to establish those boundaries.
You are so right.
Publicly.
And having worked in this area for like 20 years, I've seen women get stronger about saying, actually, you make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that is so important when you think of all the women who get into stalker issues where someone's stalking them and they think, oh, well, if I ignore it, it'll go away. And often it won't go away. So it's really important we feel that strength, that if someone is making us feel uncomfortable, we let them know.
I think when women do it in the past, if a woman goes, oh, you stop doing that, that's wrong, they go, oh, no, I'm just being friendly, blah, 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 blah.
I hate that
too.
Bullshit answer. Oh, my God.
But I think that answer's becoming less acceptable now.
It's absolutely becoming less acceptable. And I think so many people watching this will identify that we are not going to take that kind of BS.
No. Do you know what? I was watching, I went into a bit of a YouTube hole yesterday because I was watching, I used to really like Peter, Andre and Katie Price, that relationship in the
That's
jungle.
a guilty pleasure of some
I
description.
know, but I was
not quite sure what. But
I know, but I was looking at sort of historical celebrity get me out of here clips when Katie Price was in the
and
jungle.
that was quite sweet, wasn't it?
Yeah, but she was wearing this bikini, like very, you know what, she's tits and ass, right? Brilliant, go for it. And there was a clip of one of the other guy members in the jungle just coming up to her and just like putting cream on her, and I was like, oh my God, how quickly things have changed in those 10 years.
It's incredible. And when you think of even the comedy shows that are around 10 years ago, Little Britain.
Yeah.
You just couldn't get away with doing it now.
What I've learned, what I've been thinking a lot about in recovery, and as I've moved from being a bit of a sex pest, no, not a sex pest to anyone that didn't want it, but just need to clarify that. How do I rectify my promiscuity in the past? Because there, you know, I've been a right old hoe bag.
Oh,
with a love,
I don't
no,
like
but with
anybody
love.
to be described like that.
No, but I have. I've been very promiscuous in the past, and that's
Yeah,
not.
but that doesn't mean you're a hoe bag.
Well, what does hoe bag mean?
I don't know. It just sounds derogatory. I mean, if you said it in a jokey way, maybe, you know. But I think if you have a negative connotation with those sort of words, then I think that's being harsh on yourself. Because one thing I think about our past, whether it was promiscuous or buttoned up or whatever, you know, it makes you the person you are today. And this is
100%.
something I go on about all the time with people I work with. You are who you are today, the person that is amazing and incredible human because of everything you've done. And I just think, you know, people shouldn't have that kind of shame and guilt.
How I'm always worried that somebody will do will release revenge porn.
Well, thank goodness. I mean, there was the law passed in 2015.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Good.
It's illegal up to
Is
2
it?
years in prison with revenge porn. It still doesn't take the fear out, because if you maybe have an ex hanging around who
I mean, there's
was
definitely
impulsive or angry.
There's definitely stuff out there.
But there's probably stuff out there on everybody.
Yeah.
But now, thank God, we have a bit of legal process that if it ever happened, you know, you could take them to court.
Right.
Now, that's not a happy prospect to look forward to. But I don't think the fear that there's potential revenge porn out there on you should stop you just being who you are. And own it.
Yeah.
You know, if someone ever did that to you, you own it and say, yeah, I did that, and he is going to see me in court for releasing that. You know, you have to own these things. I think that's so important to recovery, to own your past and just accept yourself.
If anyone's watching this and they do have any revenge porn, you do not have my consent, okay, to release it. I do think the idea of female shame and really clambering that back and owning that is it's one of the hardest things I've had to grapple with in the last few years.
And in what way? How do you ruminate about it? Do you?
Yeah,
how
I
does
do.
How is it hard for you?
I do. I do think doing the 12 steps helped me unlock the shame, because once it's like my first show was about addiction, and then like this abusive relationship that I was in, and there was a lot of shame when I spoke about that on stage, but actually repeating that story and feeling connection from actual audience, the actual fear that I built up in my head that everyone would think I was a knobhead, and
what, a knobhead for putting up with an abusive relationship?
No, just thinking that I deserved it, and how dare I complain? Just this, that very sort of twisted, not victimhood, but like I was still in it just a tiny bit, and actually speaking about it and sharing and connecting with other people about what I really, really thought I could never tell another person, whether it be sexual shame or that abusive thing. Doing that, just I don't know, it just helped me work through it. So I don't really know what my point was.
Well, it's really hard for people. Well, I think what you're talking about, it's a hard subject to grapple with.
Yeah.
And everyone who says, I feel shame about something I've done in the past, or I feel shame about the way I've treated people, whatever. I always say, A, understand it if you've grappled with it and tried to understand where it's come from. And B, if it's something that you did to another person that was not nice, let's say, you treated them badly, you took them for granted, that kind of shame and guilt, I always see as a positive if it makes you act on it appropriately. Like, I will not do that in the future to someone else. I won't do that.
Right.
If it's shame that you have absorbed because someone treated you badly, and somehow it has become this shame that you feel is your own, no. Then you really need to grapple with that, because that is their shame. If they abused you, assaulted you, whatever, that is their shame. And it's really hard for people to understand the sort of differences between these things, where they take on the shame that someone else has brought upon them, or acting on shame that they feel because they know they've done wrong in some way. And you haven't done wrong when you've been in an abusive relationship. You've been abused, you know?
I think one of the things that I struggled with is that it's taken me so long to get to a place where, firstly, I can talk about it openly.
Which is amazing.
It is really amazing.
Yeah.
But one thing that I struggle with, because I didn't want to make a fuss straight out of that relationship, I feel awful saying this, but like, the people, we've got common friends. What do I do with those common friends? Because they're still friends with that person.
Well, do they not want to know the honest truth about
Well, they know
that
about
person's?
it, but they still remain in that circle group.
Yeah.
And now I'm sort of 5 years sober, and it was over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, well, if you're friends with both of us, that means you accept what that behaviour, that behaviour that
and
happened
are
to me.
they the friends that you will trust in future or need a lot in your life, or are there better friends on the horizon that you can forge new relationships with now that you are sober and see things more clearly, I guess? You know, I mean, sometimes we have to make choices about friendship groups like that. Sometimes we have to leave them behind. Sometimes we have to talk more honestly to them and say, I have these mixed feelings about this situation.
I think those friends are friends that I met, and they symbolise a time I spent in Asia, and it's a time of my life, my 20s, right? So it's almost like, to get rid of those friends means I have no connection to that past, and that means I can't, when you meet with someone, you're like, oh, do you remember that time in that year? And you share memories. So how do I navigate that friendship boundary moving forward? These are people I don't see very often.
Well, it's also, if they're not sort of key friends in your life, then you need to decide how important this is to you, to maybe make it clear to them how you feel about their friendship with this guy.
Yeah.
If they're not so key to your life that you think, well, I do like to connect with them occasionally, and I do like to relive those times we had in Asia, and that's okay, I can deal with that. It's what you feel you can manage. Again, these are always very personal choices. They're unique to you.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong in this sort of situation. Personally, I'd say you can always tell new friends about amazing experiences you had in Asia, or other friends who weren't there, if this causes you some sort of anxiety when you meet up with them, because you also know that they've just seen that guy or whatever.
Yeah, because I always feel like I'm the one banging on about that situation, and maybe they don't want to hear it. People always want the picture perfect thing, isn't it? They don't want to feel conflict in their relationship with another person. And I think that's why men get away with, not all men, but we're perpetrators of stuff like that.
Well, again, it's all about our expectations. Your expectation for a friendship may be what you view as more loyalty.
Yeah.
Their expectation for the friendship may not encompass that. So again, we always have to remember our expectations of what we want are often very different from a relationship than what the other person does. And that goes for dating too, the people you meet on apps. They may say, oh, I'm looking for a relationship, but actually, do you really know that until you really know them? So it's about us remembering our expectations can be let down just because our expectations are at this level and their expectations are at that level for that particular relationship. And that's true with friendships too.
So when I, just to go back, sort of revisit the dating bit, when I get on an app, I sort of descend into a little bit of like a spiral. Like I'll spend hours swiping and half starting conversations. Do you think there's certain types of people that really apps aren't a very good idea for?
Well, I think apps can certainly ignite certain traits we have. So if someone who has quite an obsessive trait, going on an app can kind of ignite that, and they start obsessing over everything they say, as we were talking about earlier. They start obsessing over, oh, is there going to be someone better, or is this person right for me, or are they being honest with me on our messaging? If someone has an addictive nature, an addictive trait to their personality, again, it might ignite that, and they just end up with too many apps, and they spend too much time on them because it's quite addictive. You know, get those little pings of adrenaline and endorphins when someone replies to you or likes you or whatever, you know. So I think we have to be aware of our personality and how they interact with the apps, because the apps, remember, are not made necessarily for a specific personality.
Well, they're not really made for us to find love. They're just made for us to engage, really, aren't
Well,
they?
engage, yes. And if your engagement ends up dysfunctional in some way, like you spend too much time, or you get trapped into this, you know, dark hole of, you know, swiping and swiping and swiping, and then, you know, if that doesn't make you feel good, then it's not working for you.
Yes.
Or you have to moderate it.
Yes. So how can I have some sort of controlled behaviour around app usage? Because, you know, at the moment, the only place that I can get myself out there is through friends of friends, at gigs,
And how do you find it
in
gigs?
12-step. Well, they were mostly female, or they because they see a persona of quite aggressive sexuality, there is an expectation of what they think. Like, I like sex doesn't necessarily mean I like sex with Dave in the second row.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And you're a performer, and of course you have to be larger than life when you're on stage.
Yeah.
And exaggerate certain aspects of your, you know, whatever, your thing, your vibe. So I can understand how at gigs it may not be the best way. I think with apps, then you have to, again, that word, use them effectively. Choose the ones that are most likely to give you what you're looking for. You know, there are certain apps that are, you know, if you're looking for a farmer, if you're looking for someone who's privately educated, you know, you know, all these things. If you're looking for a professional, whatever is your thing, narrow it down. Otherwise, go on the apps that have just the much bigger audiences. You know, they aren't so exclusive to one particular interest area. But manage your time. Again, you know, allocate yourself, you know, half an hour a day or something.
Okay.
You know,
so what, just half an hour a
really
day?
Practical about it.
Yeah, because I do think people do, like my brother met his baby mama and soon-to-be wife on Tinder, right? But it's not working for me, and I've pretty much matched with every man of legal voting age in the in the city of London. So like maybe just have half an hour a day. And in terms of like at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm trying to keep chat to a minimum. I'm trying to get them on a call to like see if we have a vibe, and I'm trying to get to face-to-face meeting as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But sometimes they flake out. Like I don't know, they kind of flake out a little bit. Like I've got something set up for today, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Oh, there's so much flakiness on both men and women on the apps. So it's not just the guys that are doing this. I hear this all the time. I hear it from men. I hear it from women. People make arrangements and dump them at the last minute. They'll be ghosted at the last minute. They'll never hear from them again. You know, it's a risky business, and because it's so easy. It's a lot harder than if you've met someone face-to-face in the pub, you've gone down your local, and there's this guy you've never seen there before, and you actually have made a conversation, and they take your number. It's harder for that guy, or you take their number, it's harder for one of you to back out of making the call.
Yes.
Because you've had that actual face-to-face time. The apps make it so easy. It's like trolling on social media. Of course, it's so easy for people to troll because they don't have the face-to-face repercussions. So there's always that element to the apps that you can't get around. Have you tried one of the friendship one of the apps where it's like Wingman app, which I know one of the people involved in that, where it's like your friends create your profile for you.
Yeah.
And then they kind of see things in you that maybe you wouldn't put on your profile. It's kind of a more interesting way to try apps. Yeah. And there's a few different ones out there that do sort of your friends do it for you sort of thing.
My single friend used to do it back in the day. That's how long I've been on apps and online dating.
My single friend, they
my
were the
single
original.
friend.
Yeah.
That's like years and years and years ago. At the moment, right? So in the last year and a half, like I've been off the dick, Pam. I just wanna be real.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with flying solo. I think it's great. It's good for you. Yeah, so fly solo.
Like lots and lots of promiscuity, and then it got to a point where hookups were becoming too emotionally painful. Like I was having to deal with quite a lot of emotional fallout afterwards. So I've decided to just...
Why? Because you wanted more...
I don't
than
know.
Just the sex.
Well, I don't know this sort of idea of what a relationship is or looks like. I've not really had a healthy adult relationship, so I don't really know. I'm trying to fumble my way, and the only way I'm moving forward is going, this doesn't feel right anymore. I can't do this, therefore I have to do this.
Yeah.
So in terms of like 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 my sort of relationship landscape. If I'm not having sex, where am I supposed to be getting my sex? Like, what happens if I don't meet anyone for like 5 or 6 years? Does that mean I have to be like not having sex for 5 or 6 years?
Well, again, that's your personal choice. If you can manage a no-string flings just for sexual release, and as long as you're safe about who you choose, obviously there are a lot of creeps out there, then you can use that as a periodic sexual release if you're fed up with self-pleasure. But, that's a choice that is totally yours.
Dr. Pam just said a wank joke there. She's just talking about wanking. Okay, so how do I emotionally safely negotiate like a no strings thing? Because I struggle with that, quite frankly.
You've never had a friend with benefits, so
No.
there's not some guy out there that you guys have hooked up when you're both feeling horny.
Not anyone.
Horny hookup.
Yeah, horny hookup. Copyrighted Dr. Pam Spurr. So basically I've got a 3-date rule. I can't have sex after the 3 dates, otherwise I get emotionally attached.
Okay.
Which means there's a baseline of...
But again, you've made yourself this kind of arbitrary rule, it seems to me, again, where, I think I could just like say you've created something in your head which maybe isn't true. Do you see what I mean? By saying, well, if I don't have sex with them on date 1 or 2, I may be too emotionally involved with them, then I'll have sex with them date 3, and then I'll want more for them, and they don't want more than that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so you've created that in your life.
No, it's the men's fault. It's not my fault.
Take responsibility. And so what you have to do is experiment with this idea that maybe you actually could get to know someone down the line on dates and actually have great sex with them on date 10 and just say to them, well, this has been great, but actually this isn't going to be a relationship for me. As long as you're honest with people.
I think what happens is I go into it and I go, I can just have sex and that's fine. And then after date 3, because I'm a fantasist, and I'll start going, oh, maybe he's
Create
the one.
scenarios in your mind.
100%.
Yeah.
And so the removal of any romantic prospects for the moment has really, really streamlined my thought process. There's no sort of a romantic fantasy, and it's really decluttered my mind.
Yeah.
So any sort of nuance...
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, but any nuance of romantic, oh, maybe...
Yeah.
Then I start going like this, and it's just like, la, 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 la. How do I deal with that?
Well, you need to challenge that thinking when it happens, that kind of obsessive pattern of thinking where it just compulsively, you just start, scenarioizing, as I say. You take a scenario, you're scenarioizing all the permutations of what can happen. And I think it's really important that you just stop that inner voice and go, no, stop with the scenarioizing. I'm not going to create scenarios here. I'm not going to do that to myself. That's all a fantasy. I'm actually just not going to think down that route. I'm going to get on with my day. Yeah. I'm going to plan when I see him next. Yeah. And I'm just going to take it one step at a time. Because we are so prone to that sort of way of thinking. And we create things...
Where's that from?
Well, you can't say. Some people would say, oh, it's from the fairy tales we're fed as children. That we'll go through hardship, but then the prince will save us and all that stuff. I don't buy that. I think that's BS. No. I think it's just some people are prone to doing that. It's like a continuum. Some people do it very little and some people do it loads. And we've got to find that happy medium. We're happy to have a little bit of imagination about what this could be, but we don't get obsessive about it. We don't let it take over our brains.
Because I know a lot of women in recovery, myself included, who will just any sort of like tidbit and will just create this like blah, 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 blah. It's like this fantasy obsession.
But it's all about thought stopping. Using like CBT. Yeah. Cognitive behavioral techniques, cognitive behavioral therapy. So thought stopping is literally taking like a stop sign in your mind and stopping. It could be like talking yourself down. I deal with a lot of people who have a constant devil on the shoulder who talks themselves down. You're not good enough. You're never going to find someone. No one's going to like you. Oh, my gosh, you make a fool of yourself when you go out. Blah, 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 blah. So you have to literally stop the thought.
How?
Substitute it with a more neutral thought. Because you learn to recognize that little devil when it's going on. And it can be about the fantasy devil, the devil who just creates these fantasies for you. Or it can be the negative devil. Sorry, I'm very husky today. And
that's lovely.
So you need to then create that thought-stopping procedure. You go, I've just been doing that again. Now stop, like a mental stop sign. I'm going to substitute now with something more neutral. And then you tell yourself something more neutral, like, I can't possibly know this now, so I'm not going to think about it now. I can't possibly know what the future is with this person, so I'm going to drop this for now. And you just calm your thought processes down. Practically everyone has to do it at some point in their life. Just going for, job interview or job promotion or whatever. And it's even more so in our personal relationships where these processes get out of control.
It's almost like a mental step 10. It's like, like the sort of idea of like these are my old ideas. This is what I'm going to think. This is
exactly.
What I'm going to do
12 Steps of Dating. Literally, someone should write that book.
Well, probably Russell Brand will write it at some point and claim it as his own. Come on the show. I wonder if actually my subconscious doesn't want me to meet anyone. The 13 years of date, like the 13 years of singledom.
Well, do you think you have commitment issues? And that covers a wide range of things.
Yeah.
It can cover a fear of losing control to someone, a fear of your own mental chaos that will be rejected, low self-esteem that, I'm not going to find anybody because if I do find someone, they're not going to like me really. So it covers a lot of different potential, sort of emotional dysfunctions when we talk about commitment issues. Have you ever worked out what you feel your commitment issue might be?
I'm not too sure.
Do you really want commitment?
I'm scared of losing myself. I think the two relationships that I have had, I lost my personality, and I'm quite impulsive, and I'm all or nothing. And so when the early flushes of dating, I'm going, let's move in together. Like my first boyfriend was my housemate in university. That's how long it was. And then the second guy was my drug dealer.
Oh, God.
Well, he used to sell me weed. And then he was like, do you want to move to Korea? And I was like, yeah! You've given me no basis to... he was not a very emotionally available person. And then
we're laughing now about this, but obviously...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was mad. So there's part of me that doesn't want to be... Also, like, relationships reflect... The person in a relationship with you often tells you truths about yourself, and I don't want to hear the truth. There's part of me that doesn't want someone to tell me that my flaws and point them out, and I don't know. I'm fearful of closeness because it's been used against me in the past.
But now you have to decide that you have the wisdom you will believe the red warning lights that go off when you think someone is a potentially manipulative person who could put you in that situation again.
Yeah.
So you have to believe now that you have the wisdom to make right choices and that you will, like after my divorce, I was very young when I had my children and got married and divorced. I was at uni when I had my eldest, and there were no crushes at uni back then. And the thing is, I divorced him because of mental abuse.
Yeah.
And I swore to myself, with a young single mother with little children, I would never get in that situation again. And so what I did, the minute someone did something that slightly alarmed me and set off a little red light, that's it. I didn't see them again. I wasn't prepared to risk it. And I actually trod that path, and I've worked with people who have ended up going that path, really believing that they can identify those signals, those alarm bells, and they go for it, and they act on it, and they set their boundary, and that's it. And, it can work successfully. And then I ended up in a very healthy relationship. And so I know from personal success and people I've worked with who've ended up in healthy relationships, you have to decide you have that wisdom, that you will not slip into that sort of relationship again. And you will be able to identify the signs.
I think there's a fear that when you fall in love in the beginning bits and it's very druggy, you're like, oh my God, you're just like,
that sexual chemistry is crazy. Yeah.
Yes,
it's insanity basically.
Yeah, it's craziness, and part of me is concerned that I will be so loved up that I will forget all my drives and ambitions, and that I'll end up moving to the country, and then when it ends I'll wake up 8 years later and go, oh, what happened? That's the fear. That's the fear.
We all have to deal with that. When we want an emotionally healthy relationship, we still feel that absolute incredible, the cocktail of chemicals that flood our brains does create that very intense period. Normally by about 3 months, then 6 months, all the oxytocin, the endorphins and all those things, dopamine that's been excited by the new relationship, tend to diminish. And hopefully in those early stages, you've already made some good choices about that person. It might have been, bam, oh my God, I'm just in lust totally. And then you will see maybe a sign. Actually, they're not the person I thought I was in lust with, because I don't believe in love at first sight.
No.
I believe in lust at first sight.
Yeah.
That can develop into love, or it can stay lust, and it can all fall apart, or whatever. So that's something that people really need to bear in mind. Still trying to make those good decisions, even though you know you're in lust, and you want to be with them more than anything. You still have that wisdom inside you. To watch for signals.
I think a lot of what we've been talking about, specifically the last 10 minutes, is about boundaries and learning to create your own boundaries. I'm a very unboundaried person. Just for me, putting a boundary down felt like I'm being mean to the other person. I want everyone to have all access to me at all times, because that means, we're close and connected. And in recovery, I've been learning to put boundaries in. Like, how do we set a boundary? And how can we start to set small boundaries? Because it's a difficult technique to learn, I think.
Well, it's interesting you say you've been without boundaries, and yet you've made boundaries around the men that you think are appropriate for you.
Yeah.
So there's a real contradiction there.
Yeah, it is.
But that's what we are. We're all a mass of contradictions. Is understanding those that helps us. Well, you learn to set boundaries by having your day-by-day goal when you've met someone new, realizing that, like I always say to women, God, if you dump me as a friend because he's asked you for a date and we've got plans, don't do it. I don't expect that from my friends, and I wouldn't do that. So you set boundaries in small ways like that, like, this new guy asked you out, but you already planned to go out with a friend on that night and whatever. You don't dump the friend. You stick to your goals.
Yes.
You stick to your life, and you slowly let them into your life.
It's almost allowing, judging whether they're good enough for your life rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. That's a new thing that I'm thinking. Oh, maybe they're not.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not good enough for me.
Absolutely.
Rather than, oh God, I'm so rubbish and shit. Oh, will they accept me?
Yeah.
But like a recent physical boundary I've been learning to implement is the hugging and handshake situation.
Yeah.
Like just the simple art of not, how like some people are like, they automatically take you in for a hug. Yeah. I realised when I got sober, I'm like, I don't want to be hugged by that person. Yeah. But actually sort of like putting that boundary in felt quite difficult at the start. And I'm still not very good at it, but it's a simple one.
A lot of people feel that way. And the whole thing about kissing when you first meet someone, all that stuff, double cheek kissing and whatever. A lot of people feel that way, and they just go with the social pressure. And I think people have to, you can start with things like that. If you don't want to give someone a hug, you don't give them a hug, you just don't.
Yeah.
Why do people think it's a crime just to, act on your own sort of...
Well, I think it's partly to do with the fact that women, we don't... Well, for me personally, I felt that I don't own my body. There's an element of that, and I think that's personified through, porn.
Well, like that guy pulling down your zip.
Yeah.
I would have just gone...
I didn't even notice it until I started telling people afterwards. I was like, oh, and then my friend was like, that's a power play, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely trying to put one over on you and be the dominant in the situation. In the worst possible way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Just weird.
Yeah. But
yeah, what are your thoughts of pornography? Because I do feel like that there's a sort of male gaze ownership of the female body when it comes to porn.
Well, I always was an advocate of, a healthy use of porn can be a good thing.
Yeah.
And, as long as it's, legal porn, obviously. Sure. But what concerns me now is porn is everywhere on every mobile phone, and it's the young men. There was a study out about 2 years ago of young men and how porn influences them. So, 13, 14, 15-year-old guys are then getting into, say, the first-time sexual relationship, maybe at 16, 17, whatever, but they're already expecting a woman's going to go for anal because they've seen all these porn stars. I love anal, yeah, do my backside. And they're watching that porn, and it's like that's what they think every woman wants. Or, threesomes or whatever. So they're seeing hardcore porn at a young age when their brains are still forming. And the way they look at the world is still forming. And that really worries me, the pornification of relationships, which is very different to even 10 years ago. 10 years ago when porn was not, or you had to pay for it online when you were getting it online.
Yeah.
Now it's just free. I mean, you get so much free porn, so everybody's getting it. And
I do worry about the young, like teenage girls, and I sound so old now, but like I really do, because that's
you want them to stand up for themselves.
yeah,
against
you want
this
them
pressure.
to. Yeah, absolutely. If a bloke goes, send me a picture of your XYZ,
Yeah.
I really want them to go,
No.
screw yourself. You know,
Yeah, absolutely,
fuck you.
absolutely. Because I've heard, not too much in my actual face-to-face work, but on my website, I get a lot of teenagers emailing, and I've had
What do they say? What do they ask?
Well, a fair number of things like, I've been pressured to, sext and whatever, and I don't want to. And what do I do? And it's really hard, because you're separated by the web. And you just want to go, no, you talk to your mum or your dad now. Let them talk you out of this pressure.
It's embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, teens don't want to talk to their parents. But, I've always put out that very strong message that, young women have to learn that they are in charge. They can be in charge. They are unique. They are just have to believe in themselves and not bend to this pressure. It's just the pressure is enormous, even more so now than when I was a child and when you were a child.
And if you want to have sex, but just make sure it's your own choice, right?
Absolutely. The confidence. The
Confidence.
C words,
I'm working
in control,
on it.
The communication.
Oh my God, I'm working on it. Next time we meet, Pam, I'm going to be married and three dogs, and I'm going to co-own a house.
And he's going to have an ex-wife because he actually turned out to be an okay guy just because he had a divorce behind him.
Yeah, and he'll be over the age of 21. So watch this space, guys. Thank you so much, Dr. Pam Spurr. Where can people find you online?
They can find me at drpam.co.uk, very short website, and on Twitter at Dr. Pam Spurr with 2 R's.
Great, I'm going to put all the details below. Thanks so
Cool.
much.
Thank you.
Cheers.